Welcome to my advanced class on Chaos Dwarf Infernal Guard with Fireglaives. What's changed since 3.0? Nothing! Which is to say they didn't lose their charge defense versus large, which is a kind of large deal. Please like, subscribe, and consider donating through my Ko-fi page. I'm trying to bring great content to you, and every comment and every piece of feedback also helps on my personal journey. Thank you. So, Fireglaives can still be used quote-unquote independently without the aid of other infantry. You might not want to, but you can. Otherwise, you have the basic issue. They're more resilient than Blunderbusses by nature, but they're not as good for instant damage. Later in the campaign, it's not a matter of whether you will use Hellforge upgrades, but rather which ones. So you have kind of builds for using Fireglaives. The basic build is all about damage. Extra reload is your foundation, everything else is just to keep that 30% up as long as possible. If interfering with charging enemies is your main purpose, suppressed to rob 30% speed from your targets should be useful. Magical attacks mean you'll never have to worry about physical resistance again. The guerrilla build would be to possibly keep the extra reload, but to go into both stock and vanguard deployment. I said before that it's best to build an entire army around this concept rather than just to do a few units. Consider Sneaky Gits to bolster Fireglaives because their poison will somewhat weaken and somewhat slow attackers, and the slowing effect of poison from the initial precursor weapon stacks with Suppressed if you are using Suppressed. And in fact, Suppressed might be a really good idea regardless. Sometimes it's less about the damage than keeping enemies in your range. Dwarfs are slow. You want to minimize people running away from you. If you want to worry about defense more than offense, Stock is still great for keeping your units as healthy as possible before the main fight. And Spell Resistance helps with bombardments. I have used it myself, and it is certainly one option. Once again, Suppression is also an option, or just go extra powder to maximize damage when you do open fire. It's easier to bolster Fireglaives than to get the armament surplus to acquire them. Some very early techs help them in the military line, giving them rank, XP, and reload time advantages, but those are pretty minor. Lord Redline buffs greatly boost ammo and help you hit harder and faster. Of course, what you really want is to get your units above rank 7 for the Bloodied Bombardment buffs. As for formations, you have a weird amount of flexibility with them. Want to set up pike squares? Well, they're like big bayoneted rifles, not really pikes, but you can. Want to set up chevron formations? You can. I often settle for a checkerbox style formation with the Fireglaives recessed in the middle of infantry preserving their flanks. The problem is simply that they're slow, and if the terrain is uneven, they'll have a hard time flanking, and then you're having to micro them more. But you can. You really do have a lot of flexibility because that range difference is pretty substantial. I think that in the end, you need to obsess about ways to increase fire damage if you want to abuse Fireglaives over Blunderbusses. All fire weakness becomes a flat damage boost for your side. There's absolutely nothing wrong with taking 1 or 2 Blunderbusses to help deal with particularly annoying targets and give you more instant damage. That's especially important when dealing with large monsters. This isn't to dump on Fireglaives, goodness no. It's to say that there are different kinds of spicy flavor. You can't treat ketchup like mustard. It's wrong as well as disrespectful. Given space and time to operate, their armor-piercing, medium-range fire will shred. And now we'll cover the really evil tricks. Reload time reductions are straight DPS buffs when the enemy is already in range and you're able to fire. This means that Infernal Engineer's minus 20% to reload time is a serious buff. This is on top of the tech tree bonuses, or if you're maxed out with a Hellforge, the 10% bonus you can get from calibrated loading mechanism. For this, you need 1 Demon Smith of the right level and 1 War Machine of some kind, or 2 War Machines with a certain tech tree capstone. Once it's activated, everyone in a set radius gets the bonus, including Fireglaives, Blunderbusses, and Hobgoblin Archers, or anyone else available. Kindle Flame activates on even the smallest Lure of Fire spell as long as it's a real Winds of Magic spell. Demon Smiths inflict flammable with their pistols, so when you want a particular target to perish in fire and agony, cast a spell. Shoot with the Demon Smith or a Sorcerer Prophet, or with the Wolf Rider's Regiment of Renown, and watch the evil unfold. Lore of Hashut fire weakness stuff can last for a lot longer, but you want to stack it the same way. Even without a special item, you can try throwing as much of this at once and watch the carnage. Unless the enemy is heavily stacked towards fire resistance to begin with, it's free damage. And if the enemy is, you're doing legit damage instead of the nerf bat version. Best of all, combine this with extra powder at the start of the key engagement. Weakness to fire is capped. Missile damage buffs aren't capped. Combine them to create fiery, armor-piercing hell for your enemies. For general work, just exploit and abuse the extra range, spread the battlefield, and force the enemy to try and thwart you. Infernal Guard, even without shields, are very tough. Make them chew through you to create weaknesses elsewhere. Try it out. Good luck. Take care, and most importantly, have fun.